The slave market was cold, loud, and full of voices shouting prices. Aliens from all over the galaxy came here to buy workers, pets, and sometimes worse. It was a place where kindness had no value, and only strength or beauty was worth anything. In the corner of the market, under a broken light, sat a small cage. Inside the cage, a girl was curled up, thin as a stick, her skin bruised and dirty. Her alien features were soft and strange gray skin with faded patterns that used to glow. Her eyes were large but lifeless, as if hope had left her a long time ago. No one looked at her cage for long. Some laughed. Worthless, they said. Can't walk, can't speak, can't even stand. Others waved their hands and walked. Away, she'll die before sunrise, someone whispered. Even the auctioneer barely tried. Last one here, he shouted. Anyone? 5 credits. 3. But no one wanted her, not even for free. She heard it all, every cruel word, every laugh, every time someone turned away. Her hands were tied in front of her, and her legs trembled from hunger. She hadn't eaten in 2 days, maybe 3. Time didn't matter anymore, not when your life was a cage. Then, the crowd began to leave. The market was closing, lights dimming, doors locking. The auctioneer sighed and turned toward the cage. Guess it's the recycler. For you, he muttered, stepping forward. But before he could open the cage, a voice stopped him. I'll take her, said the voice, calm and clear. Everyone turned. A human stood at the edge of the market, tall, wearing a dark coat and dusty boots. He had no guards, no slaves, no gold. Just a quiet look in his eyes. The auctioneer raised an eyebrow. Her. She's useless. The human stepped closer, looked into the cage, and knelt down. The girl didn't move. Her eyes didn't rise, but he saw her. Truly saw her, not a thing, not a tool, not trash, a living being, broken. But breathing? How much? The human asked. The auctioneer laughed. She's not worth spit, but sure, 5 credits. Just take her off my hands. The human reached into his coat, placed a small coin in the man's palm. Then, without a word, he opened the cage himself. The girl flinched, waiting for pain, for a kick or a shout. But instead, he knelt again, and held out his hand. Come, he said gently. She looked at his hand like it was fire. No one had ever offered her a hand. People had grabbed her, hit her, dragged her, but never this. She didn't move. Too weak, too scared. So he didn't wait. He stepped inside the cage, picked her up carefully, as if she were glass. Her body was light to light, like she was. Disappearing, she thought he'd throw her, maybe drop her, but his arms were warm. Strong, steady. The crowd watched in silence, some shaking their heads. Stupid human, someone whispered. He'll regret it, another said, but the human didn't care. He carried her through the empty market, past the cages, past the stairs. She looked up at him once, eyes full of fear. He didn't say much. Just one word. Safe, he whispered. Back at his ship, he laid her on a soft bed. He brought water. Warm cloths, clean clothes. She didn't speak, didn't move, just watched him with wide eyes. Was it real? Was she still dreaming inside the cage? The human came back with soup, helped her sit up, fed her slowly. She tried to eat, but her hands shook too much. He didn't laugh, didn't shout, just helped. She cried quietly after the first bite. The taste of food too much to hold in. Later, when the ship rose into the sky, she sat by the window, wrapped in a blanket. She stared at the stars. She didn't know where she was going, didn't know his name, but for the first time in her life, the cage was gone. The human walked past her, heading to the pilot seat. She turned her head and whispered the first word she had spoken in weeks. Why? He looked at her, not surprised. He smiled softly. Because someone once saved me, he said, and I promised to do the same for someone else. Then he said the words that would stay in her heart forever. "You're not worthless." He said, "You're mine now." And with those words, her story truly began. Asterisk, the ship hummed softly as it floated through the stars. Inside the small cabin, the girl sat curled on the edge of a warm bed. She clutched the blanket tight around her, as if letting go would make her disappear. The human didn't speak much. He brought food, water, clean clothes, and let her be. But every time he passed her, he gave a small nod or a gentle look. No commands, no yelling, no ropes or chains, just silence and space. Her body was still weak, bruises fading slowly, but her legs refused to move right. She had spent too long sitting, too long trapped. She couldn't remember the last time she stood on her own. Every time she tried, her knees shook and she fell. But the human kept helping. One morning he walked into the room holding a strange device, metal rods and straps. He knelt in front of her and said softly, "This will help you walk." She looked at it, confused, scared. Why was he doing this? She had nothing to offer, no skill, no power, no name. Still, he helped her up. Slowly, carefully, her arms wrapped around his shoulders, and her legs barely held her weight. He strapped the support to her knees and ankles, then placed her hands on his arms and said, "Now try." The first step was the hardest. Her foot slid, her knee gave out, and she fell against him. She waited for anger. Maybe pain, but he just smiled. "That's all right. We try again." So they did, every day. Every morning, step by step, fall after fall, until one afternoon, her foot moved forward, her leg held steady. One step became two, then three, and for the first time, she stood by herself. Tears filled her eyes. But she didn't know why. Maybe it was the feeling of balance, or the way the human nodded quietly like he was proud. She still didn't speak much. Her voice was soft, broken from years of silence. But one night, as she sat by the window watching stars pass by, she asked him, "Why help me?" He looked up from the control panel, surprised by her voice. He walked over and sat beside her. Resting his hands on his knees, he didn't answer right away, and when he did, his voice was low. "When I was a boy, I was left behind during a war," he said. "No one came for me, no one helped. I survived alone for weeks." She listened quietly. "Then one day, someone found me, gave me food, gave me a name, and told me I mattered," he continued. "I promised that if I ever saw someone else forgotten like I was, I wouldn't look away." She looked down at her hands, trembling slightly. "I don't even have a name." She whispered. He turned toward her. "Then let me give you one," he said. He paused, thinking carefully, then smiled. "Asha," he said. "It means hope." She repeated it slowly. "Asha." It felt strange on her tongue, but warm in her chest. A name, her own, not a number. Not a curse, just a name. After that, things changed. The ship felt less like a prison and more like a home. She started helping in small ways, bringing tools, cleaning plates, pressing buttons he showed her, and the more she moved, the stronger she became. Still, there were nights when she woke up shaking, dreams of the cage, the shouting, the hunger. He never asked her to explain, but whenever she cried in the dark, he would leave the door open and make her warm tea. One evening, Asha stood by the engine room, watching him fix a broken valve. The heat made her sweat, but she didn't leave. "Can I help?" she asked. He blinked, surprised, then smiled. "Yeah, hold this pipe steady." Her hands shook at first, but she held it. When the job was done, he looked at her. "You're getting stronger," he said. She smiled for the first time. Just a little, just enough. But the peace didn't last. One morning, an alert flashed across the console. A ship had scanned them a patrol from the Imperial sector. He quickly shut down the signal and changed course. Asha watched him, her heart beating fast. "Are they looking for me?" she asked. "Maybe," he said. Maybe they realized what you really are. She looked confused. What am I? He didn't answer, not yet, but deep inside. He knew there was something special about her, something powerful and rare. The Empire threw her away because they didn't see it, but he did. For now, she just needed to keep learning. To walk, to speak, to live. To believe that the name Asha truly meant something. Asha stood in front of the mirror. Her fingers touched her cheek slowly, as if unsure it was really hers. The bruises were gone, her skin smooth again. The glowing lines faint but visible under the surface. She leaned closer and whispered her name softly, Asha. It still felt strange, but now it also felt real. Like something she was becoming. Not just something given. She turned as the door opened. And the human stepped in, carrying a tray of breakfast, 2 bowls of warm porridge, and slices of sweet fruit. He placed the tray on the table and said with a smile, "You're walking better than I've ever seen." She gave him a shy nod and limped toward the table. Her legs still ached, but they held her up now. He watched her sit, not like a master, but like a proud friend. They ate in silence for a few minutes. The ship's soft hum surrounding them. Then Asha looked up and asked the question that had been growing in her chest. Do you think I was born in a cage?" The human paused, his spoon mid-air. "No," he said slowly. "No one is born for chains." "Then why? Why didn't anyone come for me?" she asked, her voice cracking. He leaned back in his chair, staring at the stars outside the window. "Sometimes the galaxy forgets the quiet ones," he said. "Sometimes people are too busy looking for power, or beauty, or control, and they miss what really matters." Asha looked down at her bowl, eyes filled with tears. She tried to blink away. He stood up, walked to the shelf, and picked up a small metal box. He handed it to her gently. "What's this?" she asked, wiping her face. "Open it." She did, slowly, her fingers trembling. Inside was a necklace, a simple metal chain with a glowing blue stone in the center. The glow matched the soft light under her skin, the patterns that had once faded when she was weak. "It belonged to someone I knew," he said. "A girl like you, long ago." "What happened to her?" "She died," he said softly, "because no one saved her in time." Asha held the necklace like it was made of stardust. "Why give it to me?" "Because you're not just anyone anymore," he said. "You're Asha, and your life matters." Her lip trembled, and she nodded slowly. "Thank you," she whispered. For seeing me, he sat back down, and for a long time. They just sat there in the soft light, to lives drifting in space, but finally beginning to feel grounded. Later that day, Asha walked to the data screen in the control room. She pressed a few buttons, trying to learn how to read Galactic Basic. The human saw her and smiled. "You want to read now?" "I want to learn everything," she said, with quiet fire in her voice. "I want to know where I come from, what I am, and why I was thrown away." He nodded. "Then let's start today." They spent hours going through old maps, star charts, and language guides. She learned letters, names of planets, trade routes, and alien symbols. She worked slowly, but with sharp focus, never stopping until her eyes burned from trying. As the days passed, she spoke more, moved more, laughed a little, and each time she said her name, it grew stronger in her voice. But one night, while studying in the control room, something happened. She found a file hidden deep in the ship's old memory banks, an encrypted record. When she opened it, strange images filled the screen. A planet with violet skies, forests that glowed at night, and tall towers made of crystal. In the middle of it all, alien children danced, with glowing patterns on their skin patterns, just like hers. She stared, her heart pounding. "Where is this place?" She whispered. The human walked in, saw the screen, and froze. He slowly walked over, sat beside her, and said, "That's where you're from." She looked at him in shock. You knew? He nodded slowly. Not at first, but I guessed. Your skin, your light. Your voice, it's all part of the Elyari people. They disappeared long ago after a war. Then why was I in a cage? She asked, her voice trembling. Because the galaxy is blind, he said. It sees only what it wants to, and forgets what it fears. Asha stood up, her hands shaking. So I'm Elyari. Yes, he said. And more, your kind were not just peaceful. They were healers. They carried life energy in their blood. She looked down at her arms, watching the faint glow pulse under her skin. She had always thought it was a curse, a mark of shame. But now, it was something else, a sign of power, of hope, of worth. That night, Asha stood alone in the dark hallway of the ship. She touched the necklace on her chest, felt the beat of her heart. The galaxy had called her worthless. But she was learning who she really was. And soon, the galaxy would remember her name. Asterisk, the stars outside the ship shimmered quietly. Everything felt calm. Asha had learned something dangerous. Calm didn't mean safe. She sat in the pilot's seat while the human adjusted the cargo panel behind her. He was teaching her how to steer, how to read the warning lights. She was still nervous, but each lesson made her feel more alive, more in control of her own story. Then the alarm rang. Sharp and sudden, the red lights flashed across the ship. Asha jumped up, heart pounding. What is it? She asked. The human checked the screen, his eyes narrowing. We're being scanned. He said, fast ship, unregistered codes, pirates. He nodded. Most likely. Asha stepped back as the engines roared. The ship shook as it changed direction. The human's hands moved quickly, pressing buttons and pulling switches. But it was too late. A gray shadow appeared outside the window. A pirate cruiser, large and sharp like a floating knife. Its red lights glowed like hungry eyes. A message blinked on the screen. Shut down and prepare to be boarded. The human cursed under his breath. They'll take everything, even you, he said. He turned toward her. Asha, listen. If they get in, you hide. No matter what, understand? She shook her head, panic rising in her chest. I can fight, she said. Even though her legs still wobbled. No, you've come too far to lose now, he said firmly. Hide in the maintenance shaft. And don't make a sound. But Asha didn't move. She looked at him, this human who once carried her out of a cage. Now she would not run while he stood alone. The ship rocked hard as the pirates latched onto the side. Metal groaned, alarms screamed, and doors hissed open. 4 alien pirates stormed in, tall, armored, and armed. One had a blaster. The others carried shock spears. They sneered when they saw Asha. Well, what do we have here? One of them growled, a glowing freak and her little rescuer. The human stepped in front of her. She's not yours, he said. But they only laughed. You paid for her like scrap. Now we'll take her like treasure. Another said. Asha's hands balled into fists. Her heartbeat pounded in her ears. She felt weak, afraid, but also something else. A pulse under her skin, a light growing inside. The first pirate lunged forward. The human swung a metal rod, knocking him back. Another came from the side, too fast. Too strong, he hit the human hard, sending him crashing into the wall. Asha screamed and ran to him. Blood ran down his forehead. But he looked up and said, "Run. Please." But she didn't run. She turned around, eyes glowing now, light crawling up her arms. The pirates froze for a second, confused. Then one reached for her. As his hand touched her shoulder, there was a flash, a burst of bright blue. Energy exploded from her skin. He was thrown across the room, crashing into the ceiling. Unconscious, everyone stared. Even the human, Asha, stood there, panting, glowing brighter than ever before. Her body shook, not from fear, but from something deep inside, waking up. Another pirate charged, and Asha dodged. her movements fast, sharper. Then before, she grabbed a tool from the Walla heavy wrench hand, slammed it into his leg. He fell, groaning. The last two pirates hesitated. "She's Elyari." One shouted, "We were told they were gone." The other turned and ran, dragging his injured friend with him. They scrambled back into their ship and broke the docking latch. Their cruiser shot away into the stars. Silence returned. Asha stood in the middle of the room, breathing hard. Her hands glowed faintly, her chest rising and falling with each breath. The human slowly stood up, wiping blood from his brow. He walked over to her. Not with fear but awe. "Asha," he whispered, "you fought." She turned to him, eyes full of shock. "I didn't know I could. I didn't mean to. You protected both of us," he said. He reached out and placed a hand on her shoulder. "You did something incredible." She dropped the wrench, her knees shaking. He caught her before she fell, holding her like he did on the day they met. But this time, she was not broken. She was simply overwhelmed. Later, when the ship was calm again, she sat near the window in silence. He joined her, wrapping a light blanket around her shoulders. "Are you afraid?" he asked. "No," she whispered. "Not anymore." She looked at her hands, still glowing a little. "I think I know who I'm becoming," she said, "and I won't let them cage me again." He nodded. "Good," he said. "Because the galaxy's about to learn your name." The ship drifted quietly in deep space, far from trade routes and signal beacons. The stars outside blinked like distant memories. Inside the ship, Asha sat alone in the dark engine bay, her hands still glowing faintly. She couldn't sleep. Not after what happened with the pirates. She had felt something inside her awaken. Something she didn't understand. It wasn't just fear or anger. It was power. Real power. She held up her hands, watching the blue light pulse slowly under her skin. It wasn't hurting her. In fact, it felt warm, like it belonged to her. The human found her there just before sunrise. He sat beside her, not asking anything at first. Just silence between them, like always, until she was ready to speak. "I wasn't supposed to survive," she whispered. "I was weak. I was broken. And then suddenly, I could fight." He looked at her, calm but serious. "I've seen power before," he said, "but what you did, it wasn't just strength, Asha. It was something rare." She turned to him, her eyes wide. "Then what am I?" He reached into his coat and pulled out a small device. It looked like a scanner, old and scratched. "I didn't want to use this before," he said, "but now, I think it's time." He held the scanner close to her wrist. The screen flickered, then glowed bright blue. Numbers and alien text rushed across it, finally. It stopped, and the result made his eyes widen. "Elyari Prime Line," he whispered. "Type 4 genetic signature." Asha blinked, confused. "What does that mean?" He slowly turned the device so she could see. "It means you're not just Elyari," he said. "You're from the royal bloodline, the core family that once led their people." Asha's breath caught in her throat. "No, I can't be. I was sold like trash. They didn't know what you were." He said, "Your glow was gone, your body weak. The energy inside you was silent. But now, all it's waking up." She stared at the scanner, her heart racing. "So, I'm valuable." "No," he said firmly. "You're priceless." He stood and walked to the main control deck. She followed, still trying to understand. He pulled up a galactic news stream, carefully filtered through encrypted channels. On the screen, a headline flashed in red. "Imperial Command seeks lost Elyari DNA reward offered for any leads." Below it was a blurry image, a slave girl with a glowing scar on her neck. Her Asha took a step back, her knees almost giving out. "They're looking for me," she whispered. "They want to take me back." He looked at her, his face steady but his jaw tight. "They don't want to help you," he said. "They want to use you." "For what?" Your bloodline, he said. The Eliari were healers. But their royal line was more than that. They could power ancient systems, cure diseases. Activate lost technology. Your body is a key. Asha shook her head. I'm not a tool, she whispered. I know, he said softly. But to them, you are. She turned away. Tears stinging her eyes. I just wanted to be free. He stepped closer and put a hand on her shoulder. You still are, he said. But we have to be careful now, Asha. Clenched her fists, the blue glow flaring bright. Then let's stop running, Say said. Let's fight back, he smiled gently. You're not the same girl I found in that cage. She looked up, fire in her eyes. I'm still her, she said. But now, I have something to protect. He nodded, then pointed to the ship's cum system. There's a place, far from Haran, old Eliari temple, hidden on a moon no one visits anymore. If anyone knows how to control your power, it'll be there. She nodded. Then let's go. As the ship changed course, Asha sat beside the control panel. Her heart beat fast, but it wasn't from fear, to a something else purpose. The galaxy had thrown her away, called her worthless, forgotten her name. But now it wanted her back. Not because it cared, but because it needed what she carried. She stared at her hands again. The glow pulsed like a heartbeat. Stronger now, steady. She was no longer a shadow in a cage. She was Asha. And her story was just beginning. The ship landed quietly on the forgotten moon. The surface was gray and cracked, with ancient ruins buried under dust. Wind howled through broken stone arches. And strange blue moss grew along the walls. Asha stepped out slowly, her boots crunching on old Eliari tiles. Symbols lit up under her feet, glowing faintly in rhythm with her pulse. She looked around, her eyes wide with memory she didn't have. I've never been here, she whispered. But it feels like I have. The human walked beside her. Carrying a scanner and a small pack of supplies, this place hasn't been touched in years, he said, but it's still alive deep inside the temple. They found it a chamber filled with floating crystals, spinning slowly in the air. Each one pulsed with energy, responding to Asha's presence as she stepped forward. The glow around her body grew stronger, brighter. The crystals moved in harmony with her breath. She reached out and touched one. A spark shot through her hand, but it didn't hurt. Instead, visions filled her mind, memories that weren't hers. Eliari healers, royal ceremonies, powerful lights, and then war, betrayal, slavery, silence. She gasped and pulled back, stumbling. The human caught her again, just like always. What did you see? He asked. Everything, she whispered. My people. They were betrayed by their own. They rested there for the night inside the temple walls. But peace didn't last. In the morning, the sky above turned black. A ship appeared in orbit's leak, dark and marked with the symbol of the Imperial Council. The human saw it first and cursed under his breath. They found us, a message. Crackled through the cums. This is Commander Vorik of the Galactic Empire. You are harboring a valuable Imperial asset. Surrender her immediately, and no harm will come to you. Asha stared at the message in silence, then turned to the human, her face calm, but her eyes full of fear. They'll kill you for protecting me. He shook his head. They'll have to go through me first, but Asha stepped forward. No, she said. I won't let you die because of me. You're not a burden, he said quickly. You're the reason I kept going. She closed her eyes, the glow around her growing stronger. She felt the power moving inside her, wild, ancient and full of pain. But she didn't want to run anymore. She didn't want to hide. They want me alive, she whispered. They won't hurt me. Not yet. No, he said, stepping closer. You don't have to do this. Yes, I do, she said softly, but not like they want. She walked to the edge of the temple and activated the signal beacon. The Empire responded immediately. Their ship lowering through the clouds, a shuttle broke away and landed nearby. Out stepped Commander Vorik, tall and cold-eyed, flanked by 2 armored guards. He smiled when he saw her, so the rumors were true. He said, "The lost Elyar." "Princess lives. I'm not your property," Asha said sharply. He chuckled. "You always were. You just forgot." She held her hands out. And her body glowed. "I remember now," she said. "I remember who I am and I choose my own path." Vorik raised a device, a control collar meant for suppression. "Come quietly, or he dies," he said, pointing at the human behind her. Asha turned to look at him. He stood tall, wounded but unafraid. She could see the pain in his eyes, not from fear, but from helplessness. He had always protected her. But now she had to protect him. So she made her choice with a deep breath. She stepped forward. "Fine," she said. "I'll come." Vorik smiled and moved to place the collar around her neck. But the moment it touched her skin, her body flared with pure light. The collar melted, the guards were thrown back, and Vorik fell to his knees. Blinded, Asha stood tall, glowing like a star. Her voice echoed across the ruins. "I will not be your weapon." Vorik screamed as energy pushed him back. His ship alarms blaring as systems failed. The human ran to her. Shielding his eyes from the light, "Asha." She turned, her glow fading slowly, her breath heavy. "I'm still me," she whispered. He caught her as she collapsed into his arms. Behind them, the Imperial shuttle caught fire. Engines failing, the sky was silent again when Asha woke up. Later, wrapped in a blanket, the human sat beside her. "You didn't run," he said. She smiled weakly. "I had something to stay for." He squeezed her hand. "You made your choice, and I'll make it again," she said. "As many times as it takes." The warships never came back. After Asha's light burned through Commander Vorik's collar and crashed the Imperial systems, the message was clear. The Elyari power had returned, and it did not belong to the Empire. News spread quickly, not through official channels, but through whispers, smuggler ships, underground traders, and stolen signals. People across star systems heard stories of a glowing girl, a girl once sold in a cage, who now stood against those who claimed to own everything. They called her Hopebringer. But to one man, she was still just Asha, inside the old Elyari temple. She sat on a broken stone chair, now cleaned and decorated with vines and glowing crystals. She wore no crown, no robes, only a simple tunic and the necklace he gave her. Around her were orphans, ex-slaves, outcasts, people forgotten by the galaxy. And she taught them every day, taught them to walk, to read, to speak, just like he had once taught her. The human, now older, stood by the temple's edge, watching her speak to a small group of children. He didn't speak much anymore. He didn't need to. His job was done, but still, every night she came and sat beside him as the moons rose. And every night she reminded him, "You gave me everything," and he always replied, "No. I just gave you a chance. You did the rest." One night, as stars lit up the sky in waves, a fleet arrived not to conquer, but to ask for peace. Ships, marked with symbols from 5 different empires, hovered above the moon. Leaders from each world requested to speak with Asha. She agreed, but only if her people could listen too. So, under the starlight, surrounded by children and refugees, she stood before the galaxy's most powerful. "I am not a queen," she said. "I am not a weapon or a miracle. I am someone who was thrown away, forgotten and broken." She turned to the crowd, "And this man." She pointed at the human by her side. "He picked me up when I couldn't stand. He taught me I was still someone, and if he could see worth in me, then maybe it's time we all start seeing worth in each other." There was no cheering, no loud applause, just silence, deep and heavy. Because truth doesn't need to shout later. After the leaders left with promises to protect the forgotten instead of owning them, the temple became a center of healing, not politics. Asha refused every throne offered, every title. She remained with her people, walking barefoot, holding hands, listening to stories. The galaxy didn't forget her again. Her image appeared on learning tablets, murals, even coins. But when children asked who she really was, the human always said she was just a girl who learned how to stand. Years passed. The human's hair turned gray, his hands slower, but his eyes still full of quiet fire, and Ashi only grew stronger. Her glow now steady, controlled, and peaceful. One day, as the sun set behind the temple ruins, Asha walked beside him through the gardens. She looked at him and asked, "Do you regret it?" He laughed softly. "Regret saving you." He said, "No, regret not doing it sooner." "Maybe." She smiled and leaned against his shoulder. "You know, I still have dreams about that cage," she whispered. "But now, when I wake up, I remember someone opened the door." He said nothing, just reached into his coat and pulled out a small wooden box. She opened it slowly. Inside was her old collar, burnt, cracked, useless. "You kept it?" she asked, surprised. He nodded. "To remind me," he said, "that chains can be broken." Tears welled up in her eyes. She hugged him tight, and for a moment, they stood still. In a garden filled with light and soft wind, a girl who was once called worthless, and the man who proved she never was. When the human finally passed many years later, they buried him at the highest point of the moon, a place where stars felt close enough to touch. The stone at his grave read only 3 words, carved in glowing blue: "He saw me." Asha stood there for hours that day, and when she finally left, she walked barefoot, carrying no crown, no guards. Just the memory of the man who changed her life, and behind her followed 1,000 others, each one once broken, each one now walking free, because she had shown them the way, and the galaxy would never forget the girl who once sat in the last cage but rose and changed everything.